Secondly would be the community. I think that's probably going to be the thing I spend the most time on in terms of sexual content. But now I'm going to talk about community. If you have a child with you, wait, let me switch the screen here. I'll just take that away. Because I'm kind of coming in and out of my recording software and this document. Now your child can come back in and resume watching with you, and I'll blank anything out if something accidentally comes up again in terms of that type of content. But now I want to talk about the community. So as I shared previously, there's 3 servers. There's the North American server, European server, and Asia server. Each server has its own culture and vibe, so to speak. The North American server is quite chatty. The European server is less chatty. The Asia server, because they really don't speak English much there at all, they don't seem to be too chatty, but it's filled with a lot of aircraft carriers, CVs, and submarines. And there's a little bit of a try-harding community there, which a lot of players in Asia, not a lot, there has been noted that a lot of Asian players would rather be on EU and NA because how overly competitive it can be on the Asia server. Okay, and my Asia server friends, you can comment below if you want to add some more clarity about what the Asia server is like. The World of Warships community is both awesome and at times it's lacking in terms of in-game behavior, in terms of the battle chat, which I will try to put that on the screen for you to see, or maybe there's already a bit of a battle playing here in the background. On the left side, you'll see that there's a chat, and players can interact there, whether you're talking with your division, your team, or the enemy team. You press tab and you can cycle between who exactly you're talking to. And there's some questionable things and behavior that happens in the battle chat quite frequently. Now, again, earlier in the video I talked about there being a PvE and PvP settings, player versus environment, player versus player. In the PvE, player versus environment settings of World of Warships, for the most part speaking, it's quite clean of foul language, of very rude comments being made, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit more with the player versus player setting environment. But in terms of the PvE settings, it's much better. There's rarely any foul language, misbehavior. Some of the players of World of Warships, they only play PvE because they're, quote, avoiding the toxic players that you often encounter in the player versus player battle types, battle modes that you play in the game. And I often see a lot more of like a good luck, hope you're having a great day among the PvE community in World of Warships versus the player versus player community. And so when I say PvE, there's these battle types, like one would be co-op, within your versus the enemy team is just bots programmed by WarGaming to play against you. And then there's things like operations, there's asymmetric battles, these other where it's not a player versus player setting, it's a player versus environment, and usually the term we use here is a player versus bots. Okay, much better. Now in terms of the player versus player settings in World of Warships, this is primarily where you'll see quite bad behavior in terms of language and types of things and insults made at various players. I was called a very inappropriate word of a certain female body part a couple days ago in playing what's known as a randoms battle, where it's 12 versus 12 players, because of I positioned poorly, I definitely admit, but then to be really insulted and seeing the even derogatory terms that are used here in the battle chat by other players. It's more particular, occurs on the North American server, much more than I see on the European server. Again, the Asia server, I have an account on it, I've played on it, I don't know how often you might encounter foul language there if you have a child playing there. But I can rarely play 2 random battles, 2 or 3 battles, which take anywhere from 7 to 20 minutes, where I begin to then, without a player ranting, using foul language, insulting his or her team, and it really evolves from there. Sometimes it's a back and forth of cuss words at one another. It's insulting. And then you can even be messaged in game. So I've had some players who have been very, per se, the word I would use is tilted, very angry, very upset for digital pixels moving around on the screen that have messaged me directly in-game in port, and use a lot of bad language, a lot of insults, some, you know, I don't know if I've had this, but I've seen this happen in the community before. You know, I hope your mom dies. I hope your dad dies. I hope you die. I hope you get cancer. Like, just all those type of things, and it really goes from there. So if you don't want your child to be subjected to this, then again, World of Warships isn't for your kid. All right, this is why my short answer is no. You don't want them playing the game. So if you do not want your child to have a fast-track education on foul language, or for me growing up, the setting was working on a car in the garage with dad language 101, car garage language 101, then you really don't want your child playing World of Warships if you're very concerned about them being exposed to this type of, not just the the foul language, the cussing, but also the type of insults. And as off on the North American server, you guys are creative in terms of what happens there in terms of even sexual insults in the chat. Now, a majority of the North American community players, let me be clear here, for the most part, are very polished in their language. I mean, I will admit, I'll talk about myself now in this. You know, as when you're playing a competitive game, you know, you can be very invested. It's very frustrating when you see your team throw the game, they cost the game because they didn't do something simple. And then, you know, I have called players like I have said to a player before, you know, just in the battle chat, like, you're an idiot. Why did you do that? You know, that's kind of the extent of my insults. I really don't go beyond that. And most of the times my practice is I just don't say anything. Even when I'm being insulted, more than anything, I'll just laugh in seeing it. If your child wears their heart on their sleeve, then you really don't want them playing World of Warships. You know, me growing up as a child, I wore my heart on the sleeve. I mean, I still to some extent kind of do to this day, so to speak. But definitely up until, like, I don't know, even as a 22, 23-year-old, I wore my heart on my sleeve. And as a 13-year-old, I wouldn't have been, I think, emotionally capable of kind of handling those type of insults because maybe I don't quite understand how the game works and I don't play so well. But is there a solution here? Yes. You can go into the game settings and you can simply disable chat. You can basically, they won't see the battle chat on the left side of the screen, so then they'll never be exposed to that. You could have your child only play in the PvE settings, player versus environment of co-op, operations, asymmetric battles, where they're not playing against human players. That is an option. I know some parents have done that, and then their child tries to be sneaky plays a player versus player battle, like randoms or ranked battles, are the other main two player versus player environment settings here in the game. You can blacklist players. I have a good number of players I've blacklisted in the game if they start getting quite rude in chat and using a lot of foul language and what other things they tend to suggest. And I don't do that just because I don't want to see it, but also because I make YouTube content. And even lately, some of you in my FLT community that follow along with me have seen that I've purposely blocked out chat at different points in battles because there were very inappropriate language was used. And then as a YouTube content creator, I don't want to have to deal with maybe a video being demonetized. I hardly make any money. I've made probably almost over $100 because I do this more as a creative outlet of the game. Or maybe it's more like, maybe closer to 200, okay. I'm having to deal with some Norway visa things, and you can make very little money until you get a permanent residency visa, which I'm on my way working towards. But I just don't like that being seen in the YouTube content creation, or to be demonetized for a video, or said, hey, when I make a video, I have to put, in terms of the ads, is there violence? Is there sexual content in this video? Is there politics talked, very triggering politics talked about? I have to go through and check that every time I make a video of whether those things are okay or not. Then there's also this other thing called you can report players. It's also known as karma. So you can basically report a player that played poorly, misbehavior in chat, AFK, away from keyboard, And basically, if a player gets enough AFK away from keyboard or misbehavior in chat, or you can submit a ticket on the player. I guess that could be another thing I can add on my list here. Submit a ticket and say, hey, this is a replay video of so-and-so having this type of very foul language in chat, and then they'll be chat banned for 24 hours, 7 days, or you can even eventually come to the extent where you're permanently, I think, permanently chat banned in the game of World of Warships. So those are the things, that's your solution there. Then the third point is gambling in pay-to-play. There has been a lot of things regarding this topic, increasingly so. WarGaming is a developer, they're a publisher. They need to make money off of the game, right? Totally understand that. But it's been, especially, I don't know about EU people per se and Asia server people per se, but I'll say the North America as being an American. This doesn't apply to all Americans. But I think there's a bit of an extent where I would say we can get very turned off if the game is constantly monetizing. It becomes sick because it's like, just very much of a turn off of like, hey, buy this, use your in real life credit card to buy this gold doubloon currency in the game, to then use this gold doubloon currency in the game to buy this type of token in the game, or in order to buy this type of random bundle in the game, a loot box in the game, that is has a certain percentage of dropping you these different types of 20 different types of bundles it might drop for you. Some of those are better rewards, like let's say of those 20 bundles, 16 are really good, another 2 are even better, and these 2 are the best. But then you have a 10% chance of pulling this incredibly good content from our game, versus you basically have and another 10% slightly better, but then 80% chance is you're going to draw this other thing with this token that you've had to buy only using doubloons, which you've had to use your credit card. So there's a lot of layers in terms of the monetization in this game, and it's really, I'm just going to say, it's very much of a turn-off, and I get a little disgusted. That's the word I would want to use. So they're constantly putting that more and more into the game. Now, recently, I say recently, it feels like it was quite recent, there is a lot of articles. I mean, there's what I have in my notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different articles just from August of 2021, where there was this big soapbox where World of Warships aggressively monetizing the game, inciting a mass exodus of content creators leaving the game. Also, there was a mass exodus of community contributors leaving the game. I can try to pull up another article. Actually, I think the one I wanted to pull up was by PC Gamer. Aggressive monetization is driving prominent players away from World of Warships. Do you think developer WarGaming is being naive? I think is what they're trying to say there. We've had some very prolific WoW's community contributors, content creators leave the game due to this growing tension around the intrusiveness of monetization in the game. And again, this is all the way back in 2021. This particularly happened because a certain infamous World War II ships, US Missouri, was taken out of the game. It was originally available back in the game in 2016, but they took it out because it had a really good credit earning, cash earning in-game currency in the game, and they took it out, and then they reintroduced it into the game, and it was really, really bad, okay? And there was an incredibly popular ship reviewer. She's known as the Little White Mouse. She was one of the first in writing a forum post that a WarGaming employee had taken to Discord to, quote, contradict me, belittle me, and ignore evidence I was providing, all the while barking at me to show them respect. These were the type of employees that she was having to deal with in terms of how WarGaming brought the ship back, and they did it very disgustingly in terms of how you were able to get the ship, and you still had to spend a lot of money on the ship, real-life money, to be able to even get it. Whereas you heard earlier, I talked about the Mighty Jingles. His in real life name is Paul Charlton. where he's saying, I posted this today in Saltmine's Discord Q&A, which I will be posted in lieu of Mingles with Jingles on Monday. I announced my intention to quit the World of Warships Community Contributor Program. Once the Discord Q&A ended, I posted this message on the CC Discord, Community Contributor Discord, and he left the server, a Discord server ran by WarGaming, World of Warships, where he says, quote, I'll keep this short so as not to waste anyone's time. I don't know if I should just pull it up here. I'll keep this short so not to waste anyone's time. Being in the Community Contributor Program was a privilege in the first 2 years when the contributions we made were respected and valued, and the feedback in both directions was something I was happy to be a part of. In the last 3 years, granted this is him making it in 2021, so he's saying all the way back to 2018. In the last 3 years, and the last year in particular, this has become a toxic one-way relationship, and I'm glad to put it behind me. It hasn't been any one thing, although the treatment of April, also known as Little White Mouse, was the straw that broke the camel's back. There's two things that she was treated super poorly over. I'll talk about the other one a little later. Broke the camel's back, but a continued demonstration of the contempt in which WarGaming holds for this program. The increasingly aggressive monetization and implementation of gambling mechanics into a game marketed to children as young as the age of 7, and numerous other factors means that it's high time I admitted that I'm in a toxic relationship and got out of it with some self-respect intact. To Show and I, which I think this was a person who was a WarGaming employee managing the Discord server with the community contributors. In particular, I'd like to express my thanks for doing a great job in extremely difficult circumstances. To everyone else here, fair winds and following seas, I quit. So that was a very alarming thing. And him, as well as others, they fell out. In total, there were 23 community contributors. Community contributors are supposed to be a voice between the player base and WarGaming, and they departed. And it went down really bad. There's also many creators cited a recent drama just previous to this around a ship, a Canadian warship called the Yukon, that was a Commonwealth ship, maybe that's how I'm supposed to phrase it, a premium ship that was introduced into the game, and WarGaming's handling that back, this other situation, the backlash as another reason they were leaving. It was very terrible with that. Felt so bad for Little White Mouse, also as Jingles referencer as being April here. So WarGaming, they didn't initially respond to this, which is one of their tactics they behave in ignoring if there's drama unfolding into the game. But they since released a short post which saying it was awfully sorry. So I'm going to pull it up here. Oh, actually, I can't. And basically, I'll tell you why I can't actually show you what it said here in a minute, because this gets to the developer, the fourth point. But they basically they said, we're awfully sorry. Sorry to see you go. You'll be missed. And that was basically it. All the while they were butchering Little White Mouse's name. The forum post also said the studio is looking into an alternative way to purchase the US Missouri, hopefully negating the need to unlock it through a random chance, right? So you had a random chance opportunity to pick up this ship. Okay, this gets back again into that very, per se, toxic monetization, gambling, the pay-to-pay aspects of the game World of Warships. Now, in the meantime, since then, this is also, I think, due to EU and UK regulations. WarGaming has taken some steps in a positive direction, I think, following this. I don't know if this article has a date or not, but basically they dropped this in a change in the game where container contents and drop chances and expectations and guaranteed drops. Now, you as a player might be quite surprised to hear this, but there was once upon a time in the game, these random bundles and stuff, you didn't have any idea what type of chance you had in getting said item that you hope to get out of a random bundle within the game. So it created a little bit of for some who maybe can't handle gambling, so to speak, in the game, or they struggle with that in real life. You have people in the game who are spending a lot of money not knowing what type of chance they had to get the in-game content provided in a random bundle. So there was a lot of, and I don't know if EU, UK has significant regulations on this now. I think there's the country Belgium. There's some things they can't, if the player is in Belgium, I think it's Belgium, correct me in chat, comments below if I'm wrong, they can't actually have access to certain monetization within the game because it's banned there, okay? And there's been a lot of talk since the beginning of last year among EU. Norway actually has been one of the leading voices in this discussion, I think in addition to the Netherlands and a few other countries, about cracking down on this type of behavior, loot boxes in the game when children, for example, in World of Warships, as young as 7 can be exposed to this. And perhaps they take mommy and daddy's credit card without knowing and are trying to buy more in-game things, this, that, and the other. So they took a good step forward. It was a good faith gesture, but I think part of this was WarGaming saw the writing on the wall and said it's only a matter of time before EU regulations, UK regulations would demand we do this. So let's just go ahead and do it. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but I wouldn't be surprised. So then basically, here's an example. A Kriegsmarine premium container. You had a 12% chance of getting a ship and the commander, a 5% chance of getting what's known as Warships Premium account. It gives you a boost to earning in the game. This is kind of like one of the base things you really need to spend money on. It's like, let's say $9.99 US a month to get 30 days of premium account. So it makes it easier grinding these tech tree lines. Here's an 11% chance of getting a currency known as free XP in the game. Here's a 12% chance of getting elite commander XP, another type of currency in the game, and then some economic boosters, increasing whether it's credits, XP, commander XP, and free XP with the chances. So then they made this all available, what type of chances, right? And a lot of times they put these type of this type of content into the game. I'm trying to find a good example here where, here's a good example. Well, actually, that's not as good example. This is Azure Lane. Yeah, this is actually, I was thinking about this. An Azure Lane premium container. I think it's okay if your kid can still, view this. But you could get a 100% chance of getting a special commander, but you don't know what commander you might get here in the game. So then people will keep spending, buying container after container, hoping that perhaps they get the Commander Bismarck, right? Versus them WarGaming saying, we're going to sell you this commander outright. Here's an option for 1,000 doubloons, which I don't know, it's like, let's say $8 or something like that, to just outright buy this. No, you have to buy container after container, hoping to get said type of commander in the game. So is there a solution here in terms of talking about wargaming when it comes to the gambling and pay-to-play aspect of the game? Yes, and that's just honestly, it's speaking with your wallet. Since the little white mouse incident, which I think I'll talk a little bit more about below in the next point, I've spent little money on this game. Maybe before, if I spent more, not including my giveaways, which I think I've only officially done 2 of those. I wouldn't spend on myself in the game. I would not spend more than $100 a year. So I'm not WarGaming's most ideal customer. Wasn't a free-to-play customer, but now I probably spend, again, not including giveaways, $30 to $50 a year, if that. So then by speaking with your wallet and not paying to buy things in the game is pretty much about one of the best ways that your feedback, your solution can be heard. And concerning the monetization and the way that WarGaming will lock certain things behind a paywall, specifically citing here like buying a commander, which you really want, but you can't get said commander because that commander is in a random bundle container with 13 other commanders, and so you just have to keep, buy another container until you hopefully get your right commander. So that's kind of the shady things that happen there in terms of the gambling and pay-to-play aspects within the game. And then there's the developer itself. This video is going way longer than I anticipated, but maybe it's appreciated, maybe it's not. WarGaming as a developer, they're rather interesting. They frequently have a difficult time listening to their player base, even their own community contributors. And they've been even shady with how they've dealt with some of their community contributors. Very questionable behavior there. So they're just increasingly difficult. I can cite an example, the commander rework. Basically, you could use your commanders. I cited earlier, you had to grind a commander up to being, work a commander up to being a 21-point commander. In the past, it used to be a 19-point commander. So in this commander rework of update 10.0, so 3 years ago, roughly, they had wrecked the game for months regarding some of the skills within the commander rework that they had done. The community contributors said, hey, this skill called Deadeye is really bad for the game. Don't put this in the game. WarGaming ignored them. They went ahead and did it, and it changed the meta of the game. Meta as in, like, let's say the culture and how the game was played for months. And it has kind of put a permanent scar on it since, in terms of the brawling aspects. There you have some ships that are meant for brawling, some that are meant for sniping, and basically because of them putting the skill in, the game turned into a bunch of people. Why would you push? You would never push in your brawling battleship in the game. Rather, you sit very far away, and so the game became quite boring and static at that point, until WarGaming finally, yeah, this wasn't good for the game, we're going to take it out. Despite having community contributors, ignoring them completely, as the Mighty Jingles reference, not listening to them and still going forward with a very bad idea, a very bad commander skill to put in the game. You even had something that was known as the Puerto Rico dumpster fire. This was an event called the Dockyard event, where you could theoretically grind a ship for free. It was presented to the community contributors, which talked very highly of this Dockyard and WarGaming doing it on what they looked at on the public test server. And then when it came to the live server, it was a complete, I would say, crap fest, to put it lightly. Because WarGaming lied about how they had presented it, as to all the community contributors and whilst content creators had hyped up this event, where this event was almost impossible for a player to get the ship for free. I don't know if you could actually get it for free at all, actually. You had to spend, I think, put a little bit of money down. But it was, as they said, this is an extremely grindy event. And so basically there's a massive backlash from the community, and it said, please accept our sincerest apologies. We failed to communicate the degree of dedication required, and as a result, for some of you, it ruined the Christmas spirit of the whole update. This was back in December of 2019, right after I started playing the game. So it was very questionable. Yeah, if you decide to go for it and get Puerto Rico for free, you should follow these guidelines. We had this guy, Sub Octavian. I don't think he's with WarGaming anymore. This was kind of his handle that he went by. And he made this situation worse before issuing this apology. And I can't remember verbatim what he said, but it was super insulting and inappropriate comments that he had made towards certain people and players in the game. If someone wants to actually say what he said in the comments below, you can. But perhaps we just don't, because I can't exactly remember, and I don't want to endorse saying the type of things he said per se in the video. So there was a huge backlash with how WarGaming handled it as a developer and lying per se to the community. That wasn't a good situation. You could also, I can go and talk about the Yukon incident when they tried to introduce a ship into the game. There were two, I think both of them were community contributors, I think at the time. The Little White Mouse, and I apologize if I don't say your name correctly, I think it was Chobetsu, where basically a WarGaming employee came to them and said, hey, we'd like for you to design a Canadian ship in the game, because, or Commonwealth ship, if I'm saying that right, into the game. And so Little White Mouse and Shibetsu thought they had a lot of say per se in how this ship might be designed, and even the cosmetics. They spent a ton of time on this, only to find out that this Wargaming employee was being very genuine, and he thought he had a very good understanding. Only to have Wargaming do a 180 and say that's not what we told you at all. We never said for you to design a ship. I would show you the article, but I can't because Wargaming made it impossible. Players have recordings of it. I didn't get a recording of it, or maybe I did in a different video. Basically, lying to her in Jobetsu, being very harsh, not empathetic at all, and just very deceiving and very unprofessional in talking with both of them. So it outraged a lot of players, and this is right then the Missouri incident happened right after. So there was a mass exodus of community contributors. I made a meme video on it because of Wargaming's behavior, and there was a lot of hate towards Wargaming for what they did. And that was, I think, besides this, what we talked about earlier in terms of the commanders, I'm not going to say because in case your child's watching. Besides that, how they treated Little White Mouse enraged me. I was absolutely disgusted in how Wargaming would talk to one of their best. I mean, she was the best community contributor they had. And she spoke a lot of facts, a lot of truth about the game, and even provided information like, hey, Wargaming, you said this ship can turn at 900 meters turning circle radius. Actually, it's 940. I mean, she'd go through this, and she wasn't even being, per se, paid by Wargaming to do all these things. And they literally just spat in her face and said, we don't care about you, and we're awfully sorry to see you go. So basically, she was saying, if this upsets you and what we were trying to do, especially for our North American community that really wanted to see this Yukon battleship come into the game, the best thing you could do is speak with your wallet, and just don't give Wargaming money. Besides that, the last thing I'll kind of mention here, a specific example, is that World of Warships, they had this thing called a forum. Maybe many of you are familiar with forums, and they had a World of Warships forums, and Wargaming nuked that completely off the face of the earth, for probably many reasons. This happened last July. You can see here, here's the article, a forum shut down July 28th, 2023, and guess what? They posted the article July 25th. They gave the community, the players, hey, in 3 days, we're gonna shut down the forums, and starting on July 28, 2023, we'll begin the process of closing the regional forums by removing the ability to post. Your posts and the other posts will remain accessible until October 31st of 2023, at which time the forums will be fully shut down. So you can't access them anymore, but it was very unhealthy, very kind of disgusting of Wargaming to give the player base a 3-day heads up. Hey, you can't post anymore in our World of Warships forums because we're going to shut them down. They'll be only accessible until October 31st, 2023. And basically they were going to nuke, take away all the material. You wouldn't have any access, and there's a lot of helpful content there for players in the game to discuss with one another. But I think the forums probably came to a point where there's just a lot of negative information there against Wargaming with what had been said in the past, unless Wargaming would go in and completely delete a post or delete a thread regarding whatever topic. But in the World of Warships forums, you had to make very logistical, if you made a claim, you had to provide reasoning. Here's my evidence of why I'm saying what I say, or, some of it would be fun bantering, others would be like deep conversations about in-game things, so on and so forth. And if you made a claim and you didn't really give good reasonings that were basically just kind of stupid, then people would be like, okay, we can clearly see that you don't know what you're talking about, and having that constructive feedback, so on and so forth. And then sometimes, of course, they had to have moderators, of course, with certain things that were said in the World of Warships forums. And now there's a community based one they've started, so it's kind of seen as muting the voice of the community for a game developer who says we highly value player feedback, to then shut down this World of Warships forum. So basically what they did is they wanted to move players off the World of Warships forums onto the World of Warships Discord. And this isn't a good place. Even Little White Mouse and several others said I think some of them said they tested it out, but they didn't feel safe there at all. Because of them doing this, I'm not even in the World of Warships official Discord server because I think it's I had multiple concerns, one of which I know has happened to other players. If your in-game handle in the game, let's say like mine is FlimsyLunchTray in-game and also on the Discord server, basically a said player would go into the World of Warships official Discord server, look up, see if whatever player, let's say FlimsyLunchTray for some reason, made them very mad, upset, would then privately message you on Discord and say a lot of terrible, nasty things about you, insulting, so on and so forth. So then the Discord server also kind of serves as base if a player really wants to spread their hate or their quote-unquote toxic behavior towards other players in the game. Then they simply can do this now made more easily through the Discord server. Okay. Now I've had this happen on a different unofficial World of Warships Discord server, and I talked with the admin about what had happened with said player, and so he banned them from the Discord server as an example. So there's a lot of, you can see WarGaming heavily moderating the Discord server. I've been told this by multiple people who have provided evidence to me in form of screenshots. So I didn't feel safe. I don't feel like it's a good place to be for many reasons, okay? So I'm about to bring this video to a close. Well, actually, oh my gosh, this is such a long video. I'm so sorry. But when they mess up, I'm going to try to be brief on these points because this video is absurdly long now. When WarGaming messes up, there's 3 typical things they'll do. I think the first would be they just try to ignore the problem. As with the community contributor exodus, the Missouri incident, Yukon incident, and many other incidences that have happened in the game. Then the next step is they say it was a communication problem. That's their favorite card to use. Oops, communication problem. And then otherwise it would be a scapegoat. They blame someone else. I think even over the Yukon incident, I think they fired the employee who told Little White Mouse and Tribetsu that they could be involved in terms of the ship design and stats, this, that, and the other of the ship characteristics. And I'm pretty sure they fired him. Correct me if I'm wrong, community, if I'm wrong there. But I know of other people, not only in World of Warships, but in World of Tanks, that they'll blame a certain employee and then they fire them, versus just WarGaming as a developer stepping up and saying, hey, we didn't get this right, we apologize, we messed up. And then, again, if that doesn't work, they'll just repeat steps 1 and 2. Ignore the problem, communication problem. So basically the solution here is just speaking with your wallet and just not really giving any money, if anything, to WarGaming, World of Warships, for the type of behavior when it upsets you, as an example, right? Now, I asked my FLT, FlimsyLunchTray community, what they think regarding this topic. So I made a specific Discord text channel to get their thoughts and what to respond to. You know, some of the things I suggested, if you have a child or planning to have children, how would they be, how old would they be before you allow them to start playing WoWs, and explain. Do you think the age rating of the Entertainment Software Rating Board and the Pan-European Game Information being 7 rates World of Warships is accurate? If no, why? Are there topics, practices, behaviors, and concerns you have in World of Warships or with WarGaming if kids were to see or experience firsthand? If so, what are those? Other thoughts and open discussions. And so just highlighting very briefly some of the comments that they made. They're talking about, there was some comments made regarding monetization as the game. Let's see. From my perspective, at least, WarGaming is honest in regards to getting something from a super container. Like, this is something that didn't used to exist. So that was good, right? I agree. I think it's a very good thing. The only problem is that figure, well, it goes into the hundreds of pounds. US dollars to get something from the game. You know, something that you could easily end up spending, like, let's say 305 euros, or maybe that's pounds on containers, and you still get a very a crap reward from the game, basically a very poor item. Also, you know, it's a good thing that WarGaming doesn't, they don't do blood and gore, which of course that would increase the age rating if they do. Besides that, if you have young children playing it, then that's my take on that type of stuff in the channel. Yeah. Other thing that mentioned is that, you know, my admin, he thought that the rating from the ESRB rating is probably fine, being teen. He thinks the PEGI rating 7 would be rather low in comparison. He thinks, I believe any higher would affect how they can advertise the game, which I can probably definitely understand that. But I'm sure they know that their target audience is at least in their 20s, if not higher. But the ratings they're targeting are more for that advertising aspect than the content's target audience, because basically they can't make money off kids in the game, so they do want, you know, teens, if not 20, 30 and up, who are willing to spend money on the game. Same reason they won't add blood, gore, or actual on-screen depiction of people dying. Or, quote, until the last dev blog, which talking about earlier, they have been hesitant to add anything too suggestive, besides being some anime collaborations bring the limit. Most of the player base would still be old enough to play WoWs if it had a higher rating, mature PEGI rating of 12 or 16, ignoring whether all of them would want to play a WoW's version with content that kicked it up to that point. But higher ratings would probably affect their advertising. And he cited that the specific two commanders, the two female commanders referenced earlier, would definitely push that PEGI limit a bit too much. He's also a WoW's content creator. He would say middle school age at the earliest. So I'm trying to remember actual age in terms of that. Another friend, person I play with, he said it depends on age and more the maturity and competence of the child. His rubric would be, you know, if the kid's ready, if he or she can play chess, and not meaning to beat an adult, but demonstrating the capacity of forethought and the patience to resist impulses for immediate gratification, which has a really outstanding point to be made. And I think that as a parent, legal guardian, or family member, a carer of a child, you know, there is going to be an aspect where it's going to depend on their maturity and the competence of the child, as my friend here points out, being Doombeagle. So that's a really good word to be used there as well. So that's kind of just some of the general thoughts that they gave. You know, what does the community at large think? I think if I were to briefly summarize here, veteran players, being players who played the game for a long time in general, have a pretty negative outlook on the game, because over the years they've seen the type of behavior of WarGaming as a developer publisher, and what they've done, increasing monetization of the game, and even the questionable point number one, content that seems to somehow be making its way into the game now. Intermediate players, let's say players who've played in the last, they've been playing for a year or two now, you know, the newness is gone, and they begin to see WarGaming's behavior in terms of the monetization, and how they may or may not treat a community contributor. They've treated multiple community contributors really poorly, in my opinion, in the game. Others, they probably have they've treated other community contributors fine. New players will probably be quite open and positive of World of Warships, because they haven't been playing World of Warships long enough to kind of see WarGaming's behavior in terms of how they interact with the player base. They're new to probably, you know, if a new player gets on and they see all the way that WarGaming monetizes the game, then they're like, oh, this is just normal. You know, they haven't seen what it looked like back in the fall of 2019 when I started playing, or even when this game first became available to play, when it was its most free-to-play friendly. And then you have examples of like Steam reviews. You can always check out Steam reviews that give both positive and negative reviews of the game. As of now, most of the reviews are mostly positive. Now, at times this will change because players can go back and they can change. You can see this graph here on the screen. They can change their positive or recommended review to a not recommended review. But for now, it's mostly positive because players will change back and forth. You can see there's even some times WarGaming has done some questionable things, and you see quite a backlash from the community. I mean, if you're a parent who kind of follows gaming news, Helldivers would be a pretty good example of the community doing a very strong backlash against not so much the developer, but against the, I guess, publisher, Sony, for some of the things that they had done. But this comment here, the most helpful reviews, this is an example of a not recommended, and I think he says it quite well. He says, to all the players of World of Warships, I believe everyone has noticed the recent changes in the in-game economy, whether it's for anniversary celebrations, plot, battle, random battle, special modules, special modes, Dockyard Battle Pass, or Dockyard Battle Pass, sequential bundles, or the Armory. WarGaming is continuously pushing the boundaries and testing the limits of its players. If you're familiar with the game War Thunder, you probably know the consequences when game developers constantly provoke their player base. As players of this game, we contribute to its activity, and in theory, WarGaming should appreciate each and every one of us who continues to support and encourage this game. However, WarGaming keeps pushing the boundaries and exploiting each and every one of us. This recent 8th anniversary is not just a simple anniversary. WarGaming is gradually making it clear that if you don't pay for the game, this game, you don't deserve to play it. I implore every player here to bravely stand up and resist this behavior. WarGaming has now infringed upon our rights as players, and we cannot and should not let WarGaming continue to exploit us in the future. It is time for us players to unite and stand together. We should be collective, a class opposing WarGaming's exploitation and oppression towards us. We are here to enjoy this game, to find joy in it, and we should not be working for WarGaming. I hope that each player will save and spread this message. This post will undoubtedly be deleted. Well, it hasn't so far at least. But we should copy it and share it on any platform, anywhere that allows us to make our voices heard. Fellow warriors, let's fight for our future. Stay strong. Stop rechanging. Leave your criticism. Recharging, leave your criticism. And then, of course, you have positive reviews where they recommend the game as well. Maybe, this is a person who has... when they made the review, they only had 32 hours invested in the game, which definitely points to them being a new player. Now they have 1,500 hours on record. Here they have more positive comments where, in their view, World of Warships really isn't a pay-to-win game. There might be some of you seeing in the comments that's not really true. But I think it's player perception, player opinion. Of course, we can all agree to disagree. We're all entitled to our own opinions. It doesn't force you to ever pay, which is accurate. But if you want high-tier premium ships with a permanent double bonuses, then you're going to need to pay. They are not a must, but they make you do challenges faster. Some game modes, it also locked behind high-tier ships. So I recommend getting into a clan, a group of players after you played a few matches for extra bonuses. Basically that's the type of the comments, but you can see, there's not too many hours among some of these who review the game. This person doesn't even have an hour when they made a review, and they leave a recommended review. So that kind of gets back a little bit more to what I'm saying, that new players tend to be quite open and positive as well. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just hit the nail on the coffin here. In my conclusion, I would say for myself, for my children, I wouldn't consider allowing them to play World Warships until they're minimal 13 years old, and I would take it from there. Maybe they can display a very good confidence, that would allow them to play as a 12-year-old, but I might give some certain measures where they couldn't play in randoms battle, player versus player, more of the player versus environment settings. If I was uncertain, I might even give parental guidance. Like I would actually sit down with them while they're playing the game, and if something questionable came up, then I could step in. So minimal 13 before I would really consider letting my child play World of Warships. It's not really meant for kids, and I think I've gone at length enough to explain that. But again, in conclusion, I want to welcome and open up your thoughts and comments below. I'm really apologize. This video is much longer than I thought it would be, but I think it's a pretty good in-depth video, and this video has been on my mind to do for like a year now here in the game. Of course, WarGaming, if you're watching this, please feel free to respond, comment, particularly your very questionable devlog 535. Regarding the introduction of 2 new commanders in the game, with some suggestive material there. Would love to hear your input on that. And if I said something incorrect in this video or not proper, please respond, whether it's WarGaming or if it's you as the community, if I've spoke out of line. Probably most of you are going to be hating on the fact that this video was as long as it is, which I don't actually know how long it is, but I need to go ahead and cap it. So if you appreciated the time, energy, effort I put into this video, please give it a like. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. And until next time, take care. FlimsyLunchTray out.